The cosmic joke, the grand hall of the Intergalactic Council, was filled with laughter. Hundreds of alien species sat on their floating seats, their eyes fixed on a large hologram that played footage of Earth's early space missions, rockets blasting off with fire and noise, metal ships shaking in the air, humans in bulky suits struggling to walk on the moon. It was a comedy show for them. A tall blue creature with 4 eyes from the Velen system laughed so hard he spilled his glowing drink on his fur. Even the cold and emotionless Jorak Empire's warlords cracked smiles. They all agreed on one thing: humans were a joke. They called humans loud and outdated. Their ships ran on explosions. Their weapons were primitive. Their signals leaked everywhere. The Jorak commander stood up and gave a short speech. He said humans were like children with toys who had somehow survived in a dangerous galaxy. Everyone clapped and cheered. The Council had decided to invite Earth to the upcoming military simulation, not as a participant, but as an observer. Let them watch how real empires fight. Let them learn what true power looks like. Back on Earth, nobody laughed. Deep beneath the surface, in a secret base under the Arctic ice, a group of human officers sat around a black table watching the same footage, but their eyes were cold and serious. Commander Lin leaned forward and spoke in a calm voice. "They're laughing because they only see what we want them to see." Behind her, a massive screen showed a dark section of the galaxy labeled Sector 9. Nothing important appeared there, just empty space and some old mining stations. But hidden inside a black void just outside sensor range was Earth's most classified project, the Shadowfang, a stealth warship unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Invisible to every known radar system, faster than light, and powered by quantum silence technology, it could move without leaving any trace. It was already in position, watching the Jorak Empire's movements from the shadows. Commander Lin stood up and walked to the screen. She pointed to a small Jorak scout ship moving near the border of Sector 9. Her voice was low but firm. "Target is now within range." The tech officer nodded and began typing. Shadowfang received the silent command. Inside the ship, no lights blinked, no engines roared. It simply drifted forward like a ghost through space. The Jorak scout ship never saw it coming. 1 second it was floating, normally scanning the area for signals, and the next moment it vanished from every system. No explosion, no wreckage, just gone. The Council received the news minutes later and labeled it a technical failure. Old ships sometimes malfunctioned, nothing to worry about. The laughter continued. Back on Earth, the mission log updated. Operation Phase 1 complete. In the shadows of space, the Shadowfang didn't celebrate. It simply adjusted its course and waited for the next order. The humans on board didn't speak. They didn't need to. Everything was running according to plan. The Intergalactic Council had no idea what they had invited to their military games. To them, humans were still playing catch-up, still trying to understand advanced tech, still building ships with fire and metal. But the truth was something else entirely. Earth had been hiding its progress for decades, feeding false signals into space using fake prototypes and outdated models as distractions. While the galaxy watched old videos and laughed, humanity had been building silence, precision. Shadow's commander Lin knew that this was just the beginning. The real game hadn't started yet. The Jorak Empire believed they controlled the galaxy. They believed they were untouchable. But in reality, they had already been watched, studied, mapped. She looked over to the communications officer and gave a simple nod. A short encrypted message was sent directly to the Shadowfang. Standby for Phase 2 in the Council Hall. The blue Velen creature finally caught his breath from laughing. He raised a glass and made a joke about humans probably bringing fireworks to the war games. Everyone laughed again. Nobody noticed that a quiet signal had just passed through their systems. A human signal, masked, hidden. Watching far away in Sector 9, the stars continued to shine. The empty blackness of space looked peaceful, silent, but something was out there. Something built by hands that had once used fire and smoke to reach the skies. Something that no one in the galaxy had truly seen yet. The Shadow Fang remained in position, its dark hull blending perfectly into the cosmic background. No radar touched it. No signal bounced off it. It was the first whisper of a storm. A silent ghost born from Earth's refusal to be underestimated. And as the aliens laughed and mocked the humans, they did not realize that the joke had already begun to turn around. They thought they were watching history. But history was watching them back. Zorak Supremacy Parade, the Zorak homeworld of Kroval. Prime lit up like a celebration planet as its grand military fleet prepared for the biggest war drill in galactic history. Giant warships hovered in perfect formation above the capital city, their metal skins glowing red and gold under the system's twin suns. Each ship carried symbols of past victories, proof of their dominance over weaker civilizations across the stars. It was more than just a show of power, it was a warning to anyone watching. And this time, humans had been invited to watch. The Council had made it official. Earth could send a few observers, nothing more. They would not be allowed to join the simulations, nor fly ships, nor touch the controls. Just watch and learn, like young students standing outside a battlefield. That was the Zorak way. Strength through fear, respect through intimidation, and loyalty through force. Their warlords had spent centuries making sure every race knew who ruled the stars. And now, they were about to remind them again. But while the Zorak High Commanders delivered speeches full of pride and threat, something else was already happening far beyond their sensor range. The Shadow Fang, Earth's stealth ship, continued to glide silently in deep space. No alarms detected it. No scanners found it. It simply watched as the Zorak Navy showed off its power like a spoiled child flexing in front of a mirror. On board the Shadow Fang, Commander Yara studied every move, every pattern, and every gap in the so-called perfect formation. She wasn't alone. Thousands of miles away, deep inside Earth's command bunker, AI Hades ran simulations in real time. Its digital mind mapped out Zorak weaknesses with quiet accuracy. Engine placements, energy output patterns, shield refresh cycles, all being recorded, all being broken down. The loudest fleet in the galaxy had no idea it was standing naked under a silent human eye. Meanwhile, in the Zorak parade grounds, their leader, Supreme Commander Varnuk, roared from his platform as massive banners of conquered worlds flew in. The sky. He pointed to the sky above and shouted that no species in the galaxy could challenge their strength. His words echoed through loudspeakers across 10 cities. The crowd cheered. Delegates from other planets clapped nervously. And somewhere among them, human Ambassador Daniel Kane smiled politely, his calm eyes hiding everything he knew at the same time. A Zorak patrol ship near the edge of their space began to experience strange glitches. Navigation systems blinked. Internal comms failed, and for a few seconds, it lost control of its direction. Then it returned to normal. The ship reported the issue. Zorak engineers blamed solar interference and moved on. But deep inside Earth's command logs, a quiet entry was added. Remote hijack successful. Target vessel recovered. No trace left. Commander Yara received the data instantly and fed it into the next phase. Humans weren't just watching anymore. They were touching, testing, reaching into the lion's mouth without waking it. Still, no word came from Earth. Still, no message was sent. The plan was not to warn or impress. The plan was to let the Zorak believe the stage was theirs while someone else began writing the script behind the curtain. Back on Kroval Prime, celebrations reached their peak. Firestorms of plasma lit the skies as warships performed drills in synchronized patterns. Each maneuver screamed dominance. Each blast of energy was a reminder of how powerful the Zorak had become. Yet none of them noticed the slight flicker that appeared on their fleet's long-range sensors. Just a whisper. Just a flicker. Just a ghost signal that came and went too fast to track Ambassador Kane, received a silent message on his wrist device. His face didn't change. He clapped again as fireworks exploded above, pretending to be impressed. But his mind was already processing what the message said. Weakness confirmed in flagship shield pattern. Exploit window 92 seconds per. Refresh cycle. Observation continues. Shadow Fang stable. Proceeding to next phase, he looked up at the glowing Jorak dreadnoughts and listened to their leader boast about crushing enemies in 5 seconds. In truth, it would take humans just 3 seconds to shut down that shield now. Not with brute force, not with noise, but with silence and precision. The kind of power that didn't need a parade as the Jorak fired another round of lasers into empty space for the crowd to admire. A quiet pulse ran through the Council's security systems. Nobody noticed it. Nobody could have. But at that exact moment, the Jorak master battle plans were copied and redirected to Earth's data vaults. The move was so clean, so invisible, it didn't even leave a shadow. Back on Earth, Hades completed the download and began analyzing future drills before they were even scheduled. The Jorak Empire continued their parade into the night, proud and blind. Commander Varnock stood high above the capital and declared that the galaxy had entered a new age of Jorak power. He believed it. Everyone there believed it. Everyone, except the humans. The first slap on the outer edge of Jorak-controlled space, a small peaceful planet named Villaris, sent a desperate signal to the Intergalactic Council. Their skies were filled with incoming warships, their cities trembling under the sound of engines not their own. Villaris had no army, no defense shields, and no reason to be invaded except for its rich underground minerals and perfect climate. The Jorak Empire wanted it, and so they came to take it. No warning, no negotiation, just the arrival of power as it had always been for the galaxy's so-called rulers. Inside the council chambers, a few species whispered concerns, but no one acted. The Valari ambassador begged for support, his voice shaking as he showed live footage of families being evacuated and energy blasts hitting their skyports. The Jorak representative simply yawned and said the Valari had failed to follow proper resource claim protocols, and so their world was now under Jorak authority. No one stopped him, not a word from the council leader. Silence met approval, but Earth was watching. Shadow Fang had been following the Jorak invasion plans for days, and had already positioned itself near Villaris orbit, hidden inside a cloud of asteroid debris. The humans on board had been given a choice by their command center: observe or act. Commander Yara didn't hesitate. Earth had spent years hiding, learning, waiting, and preparing. Now it was time for the first quiet move. Not a war, not a declaration, but a message written without words as Villaris civilians rushed to escape underground shelters. The Jorak destroyer-class warship ZR-11 held position above the northern continent. Its officers relaxed. This wasn't a battle, this was cleanup. Then, without warning, every system on the ZR-11 blinked red. The crew scrambled to respond, thinking it was a glitch. The engines lost power. The internal stabilizers froze. Their backup cores didn't respond. And then, in the silence of space, the ship exploded in complete silence. Not from outside fire, but from a perfectly timed self-destruction, triggered by its own hacked systems. One moment it floated proudly above the helpless planet, and the next, it was gone. The blast sent panic through the other Jorak ships. They started scanning wildly for enemies. Nothing appeared. No heat trail, no signal, just silence. They thought it was sabotage by the Valari, which was impossible. Then they blamed a reactor malfunction. But ZR-11 was one of their most advanced ships. It didn't make sense. Still, they continued their operation, shaken but not stopped back in the human command base under the Arctic. Commander Lin watched the explosion through a live feed sent by Shadow Fang. No emotion crossed her face. It was not revenge. It was Not a challenge, it was a correction. She simply marked the mission as complete and moved to the next phase. The operation had a name now. First slap, but something unexpected happened. Hours after the explosion, a signal was sent from the surface of Velarus. A short encrypted message, broadcasted openly into deep space. The message was simple. To whoever did this, thank you, we owe you. The council saw the signal but ignored it. They assumed it came from a resistance group. The Zorak didn't bother to decode it, but Earth saw it. Shadowfang recorded it. And for a brief second, the humans on board allowed themselves to feel something more than calculation. Not pride. Not anger. Just a quiet sense of purpose. That night, across Earth's hidden war rooms, a silent protocol was unlocked. If any other peaceful world fell under attack without cause, humans would know. And if the situation allowed, they would intervene again. Not with armies, not with speeches, but with precision. With silence. With the cold understanding that power does not have to scream the next day. Back at the council hall, the Zorak representative addressed the chamber and announced the successful capture of Velarus. He did not mention the lost destroyer. He did not explain the strange failure. Instead, he smiled and warned all other systems to follow the rules or face consequences. The other races stayed quiet. Earth's ambassador just watched from the back row, arms crossed, saying nothing. His wrist device buzzed softly with a message from Shadowfang. New target identified. Awaiting orders the Zorak didn't know yet, but something had changed. Somewhere in the shadows of space, a line had been crossed. Humanity had taken its first shot in a silent war. And though no one could see them, the ghosts from Earth had arrived. They start to notice. The Zorak Empire never admitted weakness, not in their speeches, not in their news broadcasts, not even among themselves. But something had changed. After the sudden destruction of their destroyer ship above Velarus and the strange system failures in 2 more patrol units, a quiet sense of discomfort had begun to grow in the high command. None of their scans showed signs of an enemy. No weapon trails, no heat signatures, no traceable signals. Just perfectly timed malfunctions and the unexplained disappearance of vital systems during operations. At first they blamed sabotage. Then they suspected rogue engineers. When both theories collapsed, they turned to artificial intelligence corruption and ordered full system sweeps across their fleet. But the scans returned clean. Still the failures continued. Ships weren't exploding every day, but small errors kept appearing in unexpected places. Surveillance footage would vanish. Data would shift. Alarms would trigger for no reason then. Stop as if mocking the operators. It felt like something was watching them, but no one could prove it inside the Zorak Ministry of Defense. Located deep inside the stone mountains of Kroval Prime, their top analyst Dravak was called in to investigate. Dravak was not a soldier. He didn't wear armor or carry weapons. He lived in data, patterns, signals. He had mapped the behavior of over 100 alien species and had once predicted a rebel uprising 7 years before it happened. He didn't believe in ghosts or stories. He believed in numbers. He reviewed every report from the Velarus incident to the latest interference on their border patrols. He noticed something his superiors hadn't, a timing pattern. The incidents weren't random. They followed a silent rhythm, one that moved across space like a predator stalking prey. Each failure happened just outside of their most secure communication lines, and always after a major fleet movement. That meant someone was watching, not from close, but from far, just enough to stay. Invisible yet always near enough to strike, he presented his findings to the High Command with a simple conclusion. "We are being hunted." The room went silent. One of the generals laughed and called it nonsense, but another one leaned forward and asked the question they had all been avoiding. Who would? Dravak's answer was quiet and careful. "I don't know yet. But there is one species whose data presence doesn't match their technology level. Earth. The humans. The room shook with protest. Impossible. Laughable. Humans couldn't even cloak a fighter ship, let alone bring down a destroyer. Their fleets were noisy, their tech was outdated, and their presence in the galaxy was weak. Just last week they had sent unarmed observers to the fleet parade. How could they be behind any of this? But Dravok showed them something else. A ghost. Signal recorded during one of the recent ship malfunctions. It was encrypted in a code the Jorek had never seen before. The signal only lasted half a second, but it had a signature. One that matched a burst from a human research station 2 years ago during a joint communication test. The match was almost perfect. The generals went silent again. Some still refused to believe it. Others were not so sure anymore. The idea that humans had been pretending to be weak while secretly launching attacks across space was disturbing. It meant the enemy was not only intelligent, but patient. Meanwhile, far from Kroval Prime, in the dark of deep space, Shadow Fang moved again. A new Jorek research station had begun experiments on warp gate defense, and human command wanted eyes inside. The stealth ship slid through the darkness like a ghost, its hull adjusting to light and energy waves with machine precision. Onboard Commander Yara stood beside the ship's AI interface, watching data feed into Earth's command center in real time. She wasn't smiling. She never smiled. But in her eyes there was the quiet fire of someone who knew their enemy had finally started to feel the chill in Earth deep under the command facility. Houthis processed the incoming Jorek reaction reports. Fear had entered their system. Doubt had infected their pride. Earth didn't need to fire a missile. Doubt was the first weapon, and it was working. At the Intergalactic Council, the humans said nothing. Ambassador Kane remained silent during debates, speaking only when necessary, and always with calm, polite tones. But inside, his personal device reports kept coming in. Shadow Fang had now identified the weak points in 5 more Jorek systems. The pressure was increasing. The galaxy was beginning to look over its shoulder, and as for the Jorek, their leaders still refused to speak the full truth out loud, but they could no longer deny the feeling. Something was moving against them, something quiet, something unseen. And even worse than not knowing who it was the thought that maybe they had laughed too soon. Panic in the Empire. The Jorek Empire had never known fear, not the kind that lived in silence and shadows. Their military had crushed uprisings, ended wars, and turned planets into dust. They believed strength came from showing force, from being loud, from marching across the stars without apology. But now something had shifted, and no one could say exactly when it started. In Sector 5, a full Jorek fleet vanished. A group of 14 battleships on a standard rotation patrol simply disappeared from the galactic grid. No explosion, no distress signal, no wreckage left behind, just a sudden blackout followed by complete silence. The command center thought it was a communication error and sent a recon drone. It vanished too at first. The Jorek command panicked in private, denying the loss to the rest of the council. Then came rumors, stories spread from dockworkers and technicians of strange energy pulses in deep space, ships refusing to respond to commands, even crew members claiming their systems were moving on their own. The Council's internal channels flooded with whispers of a new threat, one that didn't demand attention but slipped into systems like cold air under a locked door, with no answers left and pressure mounting the Jorek high. Council made a decision that would have been unthinkable months ago. They turned to Earth. The humans were officially still observers, low-tech underdogs who had not even joined the Galactic Fleet Alliance yet. But recent data had shown something disturbing. Human data systems were cleaner than expected, and Earth's deep scan satellites were positioned perfectly to monitor the vanished fleet's last known location. That fact alone raised questions, so the Jorek issued an official request for cooperation, asking Earth's intelligence division to assist in the investigation. Earth responded calmly with no signs of pride or hesitation. They agreed to help and sent a digital handshake to the Jorek communication node. The Jorek believed they were gaining an ally, but in truth the door they had opened was one Earth had built long before deep under Earth's command bunker. The IHDs activated a hidden sequence. The moment the Zorak granted data access, Hades slipped into their systems not like a thief, but like a ghost. It had studied their structures for years, learning their language, mimicking their commands, and now it moved freely unnoticed. Shadow Fang used the opportunity to move closer. The stealth ship had been monitoring from a distance, but now it slipped through a backdoor channel and entered a quiet orbit above one of the Zorak's moon-based data hubs. There were no weapons fired, no alarms triggered. The ship simply floated near the surface, silently copying information faster than any known species could detect. Meanwhile, the Zorak continued to believe they were the ones in control. They allowed limited human analysts into their command servers, believing they had fenced off the sensitive areas, not realizing the walls had already fallen from within. Commander Varnock still stood tall in the council chambers, his voice booming as he assured the galaxy that everything was under control, even while his eyes read hidden reports, marked urgent and unexplainable inside. One such report, a chilling note, appeared from an anonymous Zorak technician. It read, "The enemy is not outside our gates. They are inside the code." Ambassador Kane received an encrypted message during a council session. Shadow Fang had gained full access to Zorak internal fleet movement algorithms, and more importantly, had found their weakness. Every warship operated on a repeating 3-minute shield refresh cycle, leaving a vulnerability gap of 11 seconds that no one had ever noticed before. Earth now had the blueprint to bring down the entire Zorak navy without firing a single visible shot. Back in the shadows of space, Shadow Fang adjusted its course again, waiting for Earth's command. The crew remained silent, the lights stayed dim, the engines cold. The ship was more than a weapon, it was a presence, a reminder that humanity had grown in silence while others shouted. As for the Zorak, their outer show of confidence began to crack. Senior officers argued in private. Dravak, the analyst who had first suggested Earth as a suspect, now walked the halls with silent dread, not because he feared being wrong, but because he feared he was right. And yet humans still said nothing. They answered every message with calm politeness. They offered to share data. They appeared helpful, friendly, almost naive, but every handshake they accepted pulled them deeper into Zorak systems, and every scan they sent revealed another opening. Empire that once believed it ruled the stars was now looking to Earth for help, but it did not realize it was asking help from the same force it had mocked just months ago. The same force that had already entered its walls, whispered through its machines, and mapped its soul. Galaxy watched in silence as the Zorak stumbled in confusion, trying to understand an enemy that left no mark and said no words, while somewhere in deep space, a human ship watched and waited for the moment when it would be time to stop hiding. The cloaked Zorak command fleet gathered above the Council's orbital training station for what was meant to be the grandest demonstration of military power in recent memory. Warships filled the sky, forming massive symbols of the Empire, visible even from the surface. Below, on the planet's main plaza, thousands of delegates from across the galaxy watched on towering screens as Zorak battle formations moved with robotic precision. It was their victory dance, their declaration to the universe that despite the rumors and whispers, their strength remained untouched. Commander Varnock stood proudly at the center stage, his voice echoing through the loudspeakers as he spoke of the Empire's control of technology, its unmatched fleet, and the foolishness of doubting its rule. Every word was carefully chosen, not just to reassure his own people, but to send a warning to anyone watching. Do not challenge us. Do not believe in ghosts. Human delegation stood quietly near the back, not clapping, not reacting. Ambassador Kane kept his eyes on the sky, his face calm, but his fingers tapping silently. On his wrist display, the signal had just arrived. Shadow Fang had moved into position directly above the Council station, undetected as always, not even the most advanced Zorak sensors had noticed the ship glide into their airspace, and now the moment had come. Inside, Shadow Fang Commander Yara stood before the central console, her voice steady as she gave the final command. Decloaked for the first time in recorded galactic history, a human stealth ship revealed itself in enemy-controlled skies. Not by crashing in, not by firing weapons, but by simply letting itself be seen. The air above the plaza shimmered as if light itself had lost balance. And then the massive black vessel appeared slowly, silently, impossibly. The reaction was instant. The Jorak command scrambled to identify the ship. Alarms rang across the fleet. Defense systems failed to lock on. And none of the automated cannons responded properly, because the ship's ID signature was like nothing they had seen before. It didn't match any known human vessel. It didn't match anything at all on the ground. The crowd froze. Many alien leaders who had once laughed at Earth now stood speechless, staring at the dark shape above them. Its design was unlike any warship they had seen. Smooth, sharp edges with no visible weapons, no blinking lights, no engine roar. It simply hovered like a shadow that had peeled away from space itself and decided to look down. A message began to play, not through sound, but through every translator device in the area, delivered in hundreds of languages simultaneously and with perfect clarity. Humanity was listening. Humanity is ready. Nothing more, nothing less. No threats, no ultimatums, no request for talks. Just a statement of presence on board Shadow Fang. No one moved. No one celebrated. Commander Yara watched as chaos unfolded in the Jorak fleet. Some ships began retreat maneuvers. Others powered up weapons too late to matter. Their systems were already compromised by Hades long before this moment had arrived. Ambassador Kane did not move either as the crowd around him erupted in confusion. He simply turned to the nearest council officer and said 4 words that echoed louder than the ship itself. "We were never behind." Jorak High Command tried to respond, but nothing worked. Their comms failed, their security codes were scrambled, and their defense shields dropped for precisely 12 seconds before resetting again, long enough for any attacker to strike. But the Shadow Fang did not fire. It simply remained there, floating above the galaxy's proudest stage, in full view of every species, every ruler, every skeptic. It was not an act of war. It was an act of revelation. In that moment, everything changed. The myth of human weakness broke apart. The image of Earth as a backwater species collapsed. The galaxy no longer saw the humans as clumsy dreamers reaching for stars, but as silent watchers. Already among them, already ahead. The Jorak general dropped his speech pad, his voice lost, his fleet confused, and for the first time in his decorated career, he felt something worse than defeat. He felt doubt. Commander Yara gave the final order to recloak. The Shadow Fang shimmered once more and vanished, leaving behind nothing but silence and the echo of a truth no one could deny. The galaxy had seen the future, and it spoke with a human voice. The new order. Stars looked the same, but everything beneath them had changed. In the days that followed the appearance and silent departure of the human stealth ship, messages flooded the galactic channels. Council members demanded explanations from the Jorak leadership, but there were none that made sense. No one could explain how a ship that size remained hidden, how it bypassed every defense system, how it could vanish just as easily as it appeared. The Jorak Empire tried to maintain control, insisting it had all been a miscommunication or a technological trick, but the galaxy no longer listened to their voice. Whispers traveled faster than any broadcast. There were talks among smaller species who once feared the Empire and now found courage, simply because they had seen that even giants could be blind. On Earth, the news spread slower, not because of censorship, but because humanity never meant the display to be public. The Shadow Fang had not shown itself for fame or fear, but for precision. One exact moment chosen not to scare, but to inform. The Espco informed the Council not to attack, but to reset the balance. Earth's leaders had long known their place in the universe, but had waited until others recognized it on their own inside. The high-orbit chamber of the Intergalactic Council meetings grew more cautious. Voices that once interrupted human representatives with laughter now waited their turn. When Ambassador Kane entered the hall, this time there were no sideways smiles or arrogant questions. There was quiet respect. A request was placed for humanity. To share its stealth technology, Earth declined not with anger, but with logic. If we give you tools you don't understand, they will only be used to build bigger prisons. Our goal was never domination. We only want truth. Some thought this was weakness. But those who had seen the Shadow Fang knew better. It was restraint. Meanwhile, small alliances began to form where none had existed before. Species once ignored in council votes now found new supporters, led quietly by human diplomats, Earth's representatives. Began helping planets upgrade their own defenses, teaching them encryption, not weapons, giving them knowledge, not orders. Commander Yara remained in deep space, the Shadow Fang moving silently across regions still claimed by the Jorak Empire. Crew did not fire a single shot, but her presence alone was enough. Entire Jorak patrol fleets rerouted just to avoid her territory. The very mention of her ship became a warning passed among soldiers like folklore. If you see the Shadow, you are already too late. One day on a distant moon, two young cadets from rival species met during a supply run. One asked the other if the human story was true about the ship, about the decloak, about the 12 seconds of silence. The other simply nodded and said, "I was there. It's not a story anymore, it's history back on Earth." Children grew up not dreaming of war, but of peacekeepers. The first human-built station, open to all species, launched above Jupiter with no weapons, only research labs and shared learning zones. Humanity had proven its strength, not through conquest, but through presence, and now it offered the galaxy something even rarer than power. A chance to build without fear. Ambassador Kane stood once again before the council, this time not as a guest but as a guide. He spoke without pride and without demand, and in one sentence shifted the galaxy's path. We came from a small world full of mistakes and scars. We learned through pain and silence. Now we offer our voice, not to lead but to join. No one clapped, no one cheered. There was just silence, but this time it was not doubt. It was respecting deep space. The Shadow Fang remained watching, not lurking, not threatening, but waiting, always ready, not for war, but for the moment it might be needed again, not to destroy, but to protect. The galaxy had mocked the humans, called them slow, weak, naive. But now they saw what humanity had truly become: quiet, unstoppable, and unseen, until the moment they chose to be seen, and that moment had changed everything forever.